The Panthers starters had a less than stellar outing on Saturday against Houston, and people are upset with Dave Canales at the lack of playing time for Bryce Young and the rest of the offensive starters. Has Dave gotten it right this preseason? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because starting on Wednesday, September 3rd, heading into that week one matchup down in Jacksonville, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is back all throughout the regular season. All you got to do is hit me up over on Twitter or Blue Sky at Julian Council. You can also DM me over on Twitter. And in the meantime, hit me up on both those social handles, as I'll be answering your questions throughout that time with any thoughts you have on the Carolina Panthers. Today's episode, Locked On Panthers, is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. There is a new quarterback in Carolina set to play on Thursday. We'll talk about him and give you some injury updates a little bit later on here on the show. Let's start off by going back to Saturday afternoon in Houston. I told y'all when I went live during the halftime of the Panthers matchup there in Houston for preseason week 2 that I would come back here today on Monday and give you some thoughts of what Dave Canales had to say after the game. And I've certainly have put those thoughts out there a little bit over on Twitter at Julian Council, but here are my true explained in detail feelings on how things played out on Saturday based off of what he had to say. I told y'all Saturday afternoon that I was a little surprised that after only 6 snaps, guess 7 of them, if you want to count that opening play that Bryce Young threw an interception that was then waved off because of a penalty on Will Anderson Jr., I was surprised that they only got that much time, especially when the offense gained all of -2 yards. So actually they gained 0 yards. They actually lost 2 yards on 6 plays. And that was mainly because of a sack there on the final play that Bryce and the offense were out there. I was surprised that Dave Canales did not put them out there for another opportunity, especially knowing that he had mentioned a week prior after the game against Cleveland that he would like to see them for potentially 3 series and not just 2. Now, he also did keep in mind that they had a joint practice on Thursday prior to that game with Houston, that there would be a possibility based off of that maybe they don't play 3. But he said he'd like to have them play 3 series. That did not happen, and that was concerning considering what you were left with was not very good feelings about the Panthers offense and their only appearance that you get to see against a team's first teamers. Now, they have had opportunities against Cleveland's first team prior to that game that Friday night. They also had last Thursday and then those first 2 series. So they have gotten work against other teams' starting units, but not the amount of work that you would have been able to watch, obviously, because you only got to see what happened on Saturday in Houston. You were not able to be in attendance for the joint practice down in Houston. Maybe you went, but you certainly were not allowed at the one here in Charlotte in Cleveland. Now, Dave Canales, he was asked afterwards on the decision to only play the starters 2 series. He came out and said that he wanted them to go out and earn another series, which I found to be curious that, all right, so they needed after that first 3 and out to go out and basically score, much like they did against Cleveland, in order for him to give them another opportunity. The fact that they were poor on both of those drives, went 3 and out on both of them, was not enough for them to earn more playing time, which I found to be a lot different than what you typically would think, that if you didn't see them perform well, that you would want to see them go out there and continue to play until you saw what you want to see. Now, you're only going to take it so far. You're not going to have them play the entire first half, or of course, the entire game, but maybe you wanted to leave feeling a little bit better than I'm sure he did, and he certainly expressed that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here on the show he did say on Monday, after speaking to the media today, that he felt good about the work they got on Thursday, and that was a part of them not getting another drive. But he did say, when asked on Saturday, I just wanted them to go out and earn another series. I felt really great about giving them 2 shots to do it and not coming up. I wasn't going to put them back out there and say, let's play some more football. That paired with the great work we got 2 days ago. I just looked at it that way. I felt like the work we got against Texans in practice was good enough for me to look at that, and I wanted to get the prep and get ready for the game. Still get out there and get a couple series. That kind of what was behind it. So felt good about what they did on Thursday. No way he could have felt good about what they did on Saturday, but he had seen enough and wanted to move on, get out of Dodge, and have those guys rest up and be ready to go week 1 down in Jacksonville. Now, he was later on asked by Vashti Hurd. This is a quote that has gotten a lot of people upset after the game and going off of how poorly the offensive starters in particular played. He was asked by Vashti Hurd of Carolina Blitz just on balancing wanting to win in the preseason and being competitive in these games. And this was the full quote of what Dave Canales had to say.
I think the cool part for me is it allows us to coach our guys hard on the fundamentals of football, which is the reason why we come away with 3 points, which is the reason why, teams are sustaining drives, different things like that. It's like it comes down to the basics. It comes down to playing your leverage, knowing your assignment, and then finishing the play. Who's going to make the plays for us? That's what we want to know, and we've seen guys do it, consistently and then inconsistently when we get into our game settings. And so it just allows me to challenge them. Like, we're trying to win all these games, with whatever group goes out there. That's the goal. And to not be able to get that done, it's frustrating, and how far do we read into it? Not very far. This is this game. We got a week of work in front of us. We have 2 really important practices before we go into Pittsburgh. The starters will not play this upcoming week. And so those practices really become so valuable because it's the last time we have this whole group together, and we're able to get the intensities that we want going into the season. I feel great about our conditioning level. I feel great about the physicality of the play. I don't feel great about our execution of the basics because it's not showing up consistently for us, and there's flashes. I'm excited about our guys. I'm excited about our people, but that's where leadership comes in. And when are we going to take those steps to count on each other and to be able to make those plays when they're available?
So the starters are not going to play on Thursday night against Pittsburgh, which is not a big surprise. I had wondered when talking to y'all on Saturday whether that was going to happen. Dave had never mentioned playing them week 3 against Pittsburgh. I don't know how everybody else in the league handles the final preseason game, considering there's 3 and not 4 like there used to be. I know it's been a couple of years of that. There's some people like Sean McVay who said he'll never play Matthew Stafford. Now Stafford's been dealing with his own stuff, but there are some coaches like that. There are other coaches where I had seen today. I think it's Kansas City. Andy Reid's going to play the starters, probably for a series, but they're going to play, give the fans something to watch for 5 minutes, and then have nothing else to look at the rest of the time. But Dave is not going to have them out there. He had mentioned week 1 and week 2. He had never mentioned Pittsburgh as far as that they would play that being the starters. But what was interesting was just he talked about how great he felt about the conditioning level, how great he felt about the physicality of their play, but he does not feel good about the execution of the basics because it's not showing up consistently for them. And you hear that and you wonder, if you don't feel good about the execution, why not give them more reps out there on Saturday? Why not give them more reps on Thursday night when Pittsburgh comes to town? Why end it there? And I didn't go to practice today on Monday. From my understanding, they weren't in pads. It was a glorified walkthrough. They did a lot of individual drills. So it wasn't like they were going out and doing a bunch of team stuff. And they still had a couple of guys that were not out there. And we'll talk about who was not out there and their injury status here momentarily. So we'll see what they do on Tuesday. I will not be able to go to that practice either. Well, maybe I will, because I got to figure out when it is. I might be able to go. But I don't imagine they're getting a ton done on Tuesday. That's going to make that big of a difference. So at some point, here's the thing, y'all. A lot of people clamored. I'm not going to say everyone. A lot of people clamored to play Bryce Young in the starters last year. And I felt like it made a lot of sense with a new head coach, a new system, new players around him. Why not get that continuity built up during a preseason? And then we saw how they performed to start off the season. Is that directly related to them not getting a ton of reps in the preseason? I don't know. You can make the argument because it certainly what played out weeks 1 and weeks 2, especially with Bryce, would support that argument, I suppose. But I don't know what to really make of it. And I'm not somebody who takes too much out of what happens in the preseason and believes like that's how things are going to play out on the regular season. Because like the way they've lost these couple of games, a lot of the dudes that were out there playing in the second half, like they're not going to be on the team. And if they are on the team, they're going to be backups, and then you can question the depth, not necessarily the top end guys. We've barely seen Derek Brown. We haven't seen Jaycee Horn at all. I don't think you can have any grand statements and feelings over the Panthers defense based off of what we've seen in these first 2 games. Much like with the offense, we have not really seen them that often. I thought they were fine against Cleveland during joint practice. I was not out there on Thursday last week in Houston to know really how they performed, but it sounds like from when we had Mike K on Friday that they had some nice moments. So I'm not one of those people to freak out over the preseason. I kind of wish we didn't have the preseason at all, just so we wouldn't have something for people to hold on to and to think like, oh man, like, should we be panicking? Like last year in New England, it was ridiculous the way that some of y'all acted when it's like, it's Jack Plummer and a bunch of threes and full. Like these guys aren't going to be on the team. They're not going to be playing. So why would you act the way that you're acting? Some of you, not all of you, but some of you. And it was just like weird to me how that happens every single year. But yeah, you should be frustrated by the fact that that was enough for him on Saturday and that he wanted them to earn it, and that it wasn't the other way around where they didn't earn getting off the field, because typically you earn your rest. No, they didn't do that, at least from my perspective. I'm sure that was your perspective as well on Saturday. So like you asked them to play starters more. They played 4 times as much as they played last year, as they only played 1 drive. They have played 4 drives this year. They're not going to play on Thursday. So he's giving you that. At some point in time, you just got to let the man coach and trust what he's doing. You can always criticize and scrutinize what he's doing, but at some point you just got to accept it for what it is and hope for the best. And that's what Carolina fans like yourself are going to have to do heading into week 1, because you're not going to see Bryce. You're not going to see the rest of these guys again. They have 1 more practice on Tuesday. They will not play on Thursday. They'll be back out there next week as they cut down the roster from 90 to 53 guys and add 16 more back with the practice squad. Like we'll find out mid next week what this team is going to look like, at least initially heading into the season, and then it'll move on from there as they prepare for their game prep against Jacksonville. So yeah, Saturday left a lot to be desired. I didn't love necessarily the explanation about wanting them to earn it. I didn't necessarily either love him talking about not loving the execution. The great way to work on that would be, I would guess, in real game time, especially if you're not going to have a joint practice this week. But that's how he's handling it. It's better than I suppose last year was. But then again, I'm not someone who takes too much out of the preseason and places that on what happens in a regular season. So we'll see how it plays out once they get to Jacksonville in a couple of weeks. But right now, kind of have our eyebrow raised just based off of some of the things that were said and done on Saturday. But of course, let's all hope for the best. All right, let's take a quick pause and come back here and give you some injury updates from practice on Monday here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. If you think it's going to be Bryce Young, why not go ahead and put that out there? Crown your champion in August. If you want to be a homer and not look at the preseason and freak out, go ahead and put it on the Panthers, or you can play it safer and just parlay your division winner, dark horse, which could also be Carolina in the NFC South. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's move on from Saturday and not get too focused on what Canales did and did not do as far as playing time for the Panthers. Looking at a couple of injury things coming out of Monday, as again, from everyone who was there. Like I saw Joe Person from The Athletic just tweet out, yeah, guys, it's basically a walkthrough. I'm not going to be reporting anything as far as updates, because they weren't doing anything that was update worthy as far as what was happening on the practice field. But as far as who was out there, who was not out there, that was something that's update worthy, which we're going to do right now. Jaycee Horn got out of his stitches. He was out there in gloves, catching the ball with 2 hands. So he is fully back. Yes, he will not play on Thursday, but he will be back week 1, barring any sort of setback. Knock on wood, everything should be fine. He did say last Tuesday when speaking to the media that he had no idea when he was going to get his stitches out, was hopeful that he could be out there on Thursday last week, then Saturday. That did not happen. He was out there on Monday today. So everything is all good there with JC with the stitches out of his left thumb, and he should be good to go come week 1. A couple of guys that have been monitoring, the Panthers have been monitoring over the last couple of weeks as far as whether they could be ready for this week against Pittsburgh. Chandler Zavala been dealing with that patellar tendon issue. He should be good to go potentially on Thursday if he's able to check some boxes. He was out there on Monday, so you're going to look at him again on Tuesday. Claude Sherrillis, who's been dealing with a groin, also could be ready to go on Thursday if he can check some boxes on Tuesday. So more updates on those guys tomorrow. Bobby Brown III has a sore knee, and DJ Johnson has a sore hip. So both of those guys got the day off. They should be back out there on Tuesday. At least that's the hope. And then we'll see what happens with them for Thursday. I'm guessing Bobby Brown III will play, considering he has not really gotten a ton of time with the ones, at least in the preseason games. And it hasn't been a lot for him to get time with the ones anyways. But we'll see how much he plays, if at all, on Thursday. With him and DJ Johnson, they'll check them back out on Tuesday. So you're going to get improvements from Nic Scourton, by the way. And we talked about this on Saturday. It was a heat-related issue. That's how it was described and reported, until we found out after the game that he had a collapsed lung, which is like, damn. So I was surprised when I heard heat-related issue, because Scourton is from Texas, just was at A&M. I'm sure they have practiced in the heat a ton of times. It's been hot here in Carolina. So I was surprised by that, and I wasn't mocking or making fun of him at all. I was just like, really? Like, that's what he's dealing with? This makes a lot more sense, because I did not expect it. Like, the way that these guys make sure they're hydrated and the staff make sure they're hydrated. Like, it's very rare, it feels like, that you see someone dealing with this kind of issue, especially like this deep into camp. Like, that's typically not a problem. I know it's been like cooler in Charlotte and been raining, so maybe that could have been an impact, but that was not the case. Apparently he had a hard hit and had a collapsed lung. So according to Dave Canales, it presented like he was having like a heat related issue. Then it got worse. They took him to the hospital, and the people told him, yeah, he has a collapsed lung. So unfortunately for Nic Scourton, he had to drive from Houston back to Charlotte. And I'm guessing that was him and some poor staffer who had to do that, because they didn't let him go back by himself. So 15 hours he had to drive back from Houston to Charlotte. So that sucks for him and whoever was escorting him to Charlotte with that collapsed lung. I guess the pressure in planes, he's not allowed to be up there, so can cause some sort of issues. So, but he was out there running apparently on Monday. He will not play on Thursday, but Dave Canales said he's made significant improvement, which is a good thing to hear. And we'll get further updates. He's got this week to recover, next week to recover, and then really leading up to game week after Labor Day. That's when really need to know what the situation is going to be with him and whether he can go week 1. Terrell McMillan, he was not out there he didn't have his helmet. He was out there. He didn't have his helmet. He's dealing with a sore hamstring, according to Dave Canales. Imaging came out fine. Noted that he's been taking a lot of reps. He has been out there in the preseason, even after the ones have gone off the field. He was out there again on Saturday, played a good amount. I think the whole first half, the Friday night game against Cleveland. So they just want to shut him down for a couple of days. And he may not play on Thursday. We'll see. I think if he's got a sore hamstring, maybe give him the week off and not even kind of deal with it, and then get him back out there ramped up next week and then really ready to go game week. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. LeBron Ray is dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's listed as week to week. He has not responded the way that they were hoping, and there's still potentially a possibility he can play on Thursday, but does not appear to be where things are trending just based off of the latest report. And then both kickers, Ryan Fitzgerald, who knocked home a 52-yarder on Saturday, and then Matthew Wright, both of them will get a chance again on Thursday to kick. And I assume we'll know who the winner is maybe this weekend after the game, or we'll find out, of course, next Tuesday by 4 p.m. Eastern time, when they have to cut down the roster from 90 to 53 guys. Some news that did come out on Sunday of Andy Dalton who had what Dave Canales described as an elbow injury in the game on Saturday. He got hit by, it was Danielle Hunter, right? Danielle Hunter, he's the other guy. He hit him, and that was a scary moment, at least for Andy, as he had to come out. Jack Plummer came back in and played out the rest of the game. Panthers had no quarterbacks. I wondered if they would bring in one just to be able to cover if they were deciding not to play Bryce at all. And then if Andy's not going to play on Thursday, if they bring somebody else. And they brought in Bryce Perkins, former Virginia Cavalier, played with the Rams, has some connections here to Carolina with some of the Rams staff, knows a little bit of the offense. Apparently Mike Bercovici, former Arizona State quarterback, was his teammate. So yeah, that's kind of crazy how that is, how things play out like that back at ASU. But Dalton, apparently his elbow injury is mild. It's more of a muscle strain, and they're taking it day to day. He threw a little bit today, probably won't play on Thursday. And I think at this point in time, if if Bryce is not going to play, no reason to play Andy. You know, you have an Andy Dalton. Give Jack Plummer a lot of snaps, and then give Bryce Perkins. And I'd be curious. Like, I saw someone tweeting out, like, was Jack Plummer even good in college? I didn't think he was very good. Put up decent numbers at Cal and at Louisville's last 2 years. I thought that Bryce Perkins was a stud, especially at UVA in 2019 when they won the ACC Coastal. That doesn't say a lot because the Coastal was just a mess, a beautiful mess of a division back when it existed. But Bryce Perkins, I think, is probably a better player. He was just the UFL MVP. Cannot tell me that Jack Plummer is better than Bryce Perkins. So if Bryce Perkins goes out there, plays well enough, I wouldn't mind having him on the practice squad. But we'll see what they decide to do. Jack Plummer will get likely the chance to start on Thursday night against Pittsburgh. Trey Hendrickson, he's on a trade block. And apparently the Carolina Panthers, according to one report, are interested. Should they make that deal? We'll talk about it here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on Locked On Panthers, and let's talk about the possibility of the Panthers trading for one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. That's right, Trey Hendrickson is officially on the trade block up in Cincinnati, the fake Queen City. Shouldn't even dignify them by even calling him the fake Queen City, but he's up there in Cincinnati, and for whatever reason, Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, who's notoriously one of the cheapest owners in the league, is not giving him what he wants. Apparently the issue, according at least to the Locked On Bengals guys and a bunch of reporters out there, is that the guaranteed money is not where Trey Hendrickson wants it to be. The years, the overall total, all that's great. But the guarantee, like what he's actually going to get, is not to his liking. And I'm a little bit surprised because he was down in Florida at the beginning of training camp. He came back to Cincinnati. Why come back to Cincinnati if you don't believe a deal is imminent? It's been a couple weeks, a deal's not there, and the Bengals have now opened up trade offers and said, all right, let's go see what your market is. Let's see what we can get back for you. Now, according to Jordan Schultz, who is an NFL insider, does not have anybody where he's working right now. But Jordan Schultz, son of the Starbucks guy, he says that the Panthers, Browns, and Colts are among the teams that have shown interest in trading for Trey Hendrickson. And in-division and in-state trade is highly unlikely, so not going to happen for the Browns, it sounds like, because I believe the Browns and Bengals have never made a trade ever in the history of the organizations. I think there was one time like AJ McCarron was going to get traded, and then that one didn't get approved by the league because it wasn't on time or something like that. According to Diana Rossini of The Athletic, she is saying that teams that are interested in Trey Hendrickson have been told by the Bengals that their asking price includes a young defensive player and a 2026 first-round pick, according to league sources. So, are you willing to watch the Panthers give up their first round pick again and give up a young defensive player. Because let's look around. Like, who's the young defensive player they're going to give up? They're not giving up Derek Brown. They're not giving up Jaycee Horn, even though those guys would basically be on par with Trey Hendrickson. The difference is they're younger than Trey Hendrickson by like 5 years or so. So you're not going to make that kind of young player deal at all. Are you willing to trade one of the guys who just got here in Princely Umanmielen or Nic Scourton, considering that you just drafted them? Both of them are edge rushers. So you're paying Pat Jones, you're paying DJ Wonnum. So do you need to have 5 guys in there? Is it going to be a little bit of crowd of room if you bring in Trey Hendrickson? So of the two, Umanmielen and Scourton, which one are you parting ways with? Or are you going to part ways with Trevin Wallace? Because then that could be one where it's like, okay, yeah, you can move on from Trevin Wallace. He's just an inside linebacker. That's not the biggest deal. The off-ball linebacker market isn't like the craziest as far as numbers-wise. So you can go maybe draft someone. You can see how things play out with Josie Jewell, maybe bring him back and make do for the time being. Now, that'd put them in a very precarious situation. I guess it would be Chris Barnes and Christian Roseboom. I don't know if that's what you want to start off the season, but that may be something that's more palatable than giving up Scourton or Umanmielen. Shaw Smith-Wade, you cool with that? I'm guessing probably. Lathan Ransom probably, but do the Bengals want those guys? I'm guessing that's not going to be something that sways them that much. Like a first rounder plus maybe one of those edge rushers with Trevin Wallace, like that's a lot, especially when you consider you're going to have to pay him a ton of money, and you still have to figure out what the deal with Icky is going to look like, whether you like that or not. And you have to look at a potential deal for Taylor Moton. If Bryce Young balls out, his contract extension potentially, he may not be up, just the way how Carolina's gone about things in recent years. Like, there's a lot to weigh when it comes to potentially making that kind of a deal on top of having to sign a player of Trey Hendrickson's caliber. So I'm not necessarily against it. Like, I'm all for them getting like a true pass rusher, because right now I don't see it. Pat Jones is impressed a little bit. Wonnum, we've seen some of the juice from him. Haven't seen, Scourton I thought was really good against the Browns, but those are the twos. But still, I think he's got the goods. Umanmielen, I think he's impressive as well, but there's like not a single guy you look at right now and know for a fact, like, this is one of the best pass rushers in the league. There's Myles Garrett, there's Micah Parsons, and then there's Trey Hendrickson. And certainly you can argue Trey Hendrickson is above them. I think Garrett's probably number one. Parsons, maybe. It's those three are studs. And if you have the opportunity to get one of them, you have to be interested in potentially making that deal. But for that price, I don't think Cincinnati's going to get that. I think they're going to end up getting probably a day 2 pick, maybe multiple day 2 picks. I don't think they're getting a young player plus a first. I don't think they're getting a first rounder, first off. I think that's a little bit unrealistic because of how much you have to pay Hendrickson on top of what you give up compensation wise. So we'll see. I think he's likely to stay in Cincinnati. I don't see why they wouldn't figure that out. They are in their Super Bowl window, which according to Joe Burrow, as long as he's in Cincinnati, they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Their defense sucked last year. Yes, this defense wasn't good either, but why would they not give him what he wants? It's just as weird to me why this has even become a conversation that we're having across the league and even having here in Carolina. I like the young guys they have. Would love to see them get developed, but if you're telling me Trey Hendrickson can come here, ball out for 4 more years, I think I have more confidence in his ability to do that than any of the young guys they have on the team right now. I know maybe you like Scourton more, Umanmielen more, proven commodity versus a guy who just got here and hasn't played a single down in the NFL. Might go with the proven commodity, but giving a first round pick and one of those guys, I don't know. I don't know about that. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm guessing he stays in Cincinnati. If he comes to Carolina, great. And we'll talk about it if that does happen. But those are my thoughts. I'm kind of on the fence. Don't really know how to feel either way. Be a great thing if it happens, but it really depends on what it is that they're truly giving up. Because if it's a young guy, then that could be a calculated risk because of Hendrickson's age. And also, it's like you put in an investment in them, you're going to move on that quickly. And then, first rounder cannot. I just don't feel like they can do that. But we'll see how it all works out, because I don't know if that's something that puts them over the top, but it definitely makes their pass rush a lot better than it was a year ago. All right, it's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, as I'm answering your questions here on social and preparing for the weekly Wednesday mailbag starting on September 3rd. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Tuesday as we continue to prepare for the preseason finale on Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers.